She said 5 words on live television, and every executive at Wnba headquarters should be losing sleep tonight. Not because it was scandalous, not because it was rude, because it was true, and because the woman who said it has spent almost 30 years earning the right to say it without anyone being able to dismiss her. Rebecca Lobo doesn't do outrage for clicks. She's not a hot take merchant. She's a Hall of Famer, an Olympic champion, someone who has broadcast this league since before most of its current stars were born. And when someone like that finally breaks her usual composure to say what players and coaches have been muttering in hallways for months, you pay attention, because it means the dam is cracking. Here's what set her off, and honestly, here's what should have set off anyone paying attention. Caitlin Clark missed 5 games. Just 5. And in that short window, the entire machine that the WNBA has been quietly running on for 2 years sputtered and nearly stalled out completely. Ratings didn't dip, they cratered, in some windows dropping by roughly half. Social conversation around the league went quiet. Stories that would have trended nationally with Clark on the floor barely made a ripple without her. Nobody had to speculate about what was happening. The numbers did the talking, brutally and instantly. Then she came back, and it wasn't a quiet return, it was a message sent to the entire league in real time. In her first big game back, she dropped 25 points before halftime, and inside that stretch, in the space of under 40 seconds, she pulled up for 3 straight logo threes, not step-back mid-range looks, not contested catch-and-shoot threes from NBA range, shots from 30-plus feet, with a hand in her face, like it was nothing. Lobo, who has literally been watching this sport at the highest level since the late 90s, said flatly she had never seen anything like it in a WNBA game. Not that stretch, not that range, not that ease. And the audience noticed instantly. That single game against the Liberty pulled in about 2.8 million viewers. For context, that's more than the average audience for that year's Stanley Cup Finals, one of the oldest, most storied championship stages in North American sports. Nobody is saying basketball and hockey are the same animal, but when a regular season WNBA game is outdrawing a cup final, you're not looking at a growing niche anymore. You're looking at a genuine mainstream sports property, and it is being carried almost entirely on the shoulders of one player. That's the backdrop for what Lobo said next, and it's the sentence that should be echoing through league offices right now. She said people are paying attention again. Sit with the word again for a second. Not for the first time. Again. That word alone confirms the entire theory that the 5-game absence proved with data. When Clark isn't on the floor, the audience doesn't just shrink a little, it leaves. It goes and does something else with its Tuesday night. And the second she's back doing what she does, they come flooding back and like a tap being turned back on. But the part of Lobo's comments that actually lit a fire wasn't the praise. It was what came right after it. Because that's when she stopped talking about offense and started talking about a problem the league has been trying very hard to pretend isn't happening. The officiating in this league has been sliding for a while now, and everyone who watches closely already knew it. Fans have been complaining, analysts have been raising eyebrows on air, and coaches have clearly been biting their tongues after games for months, choosing their words carefully because nobody wants a fine. But after the Fever's game against the Sun, whatever restraint existed evaporated, because what happened on that court crossed a line that simply cannot be explained away as normal physical basketball. Clark took a full body check in that game. Not a hard box out, not aggressive positioning, an actual body check that sent her stumbling. That alone should have drawn a whistle. Then it got worse. She was clawed across the face by an opposing player, and it went viral within minutes because broadcasters calling the game live were audibly expecting an ejection as it happened. You could hear it in their voices. They knew exactly what they were watching. And then, nothing. No flagrant call, no ejection, no acknowledgement from the officiating crew that anything unusual had even occurred. And that wasn't even everything from that single game. Earlier in the same matchup, Clark was grabbed by the shoulder and the bicep and twisted, not a normal defensive hand check, a twist, the kind of contact that in almost any other context gets called exactly what it is. Multiple camera angles caught it clean. The whistle stayed silent. Her head coach, Stephanie White, sat down at the podium afterward and delivered one of the most quietly devastating breakdowns you'll hear from a professional coach anywhere. She talked about how much faster and stronger the league has gotten, how the pace of play now is nothing like it was even a few years ago. Players are bigger, quicker, more athletic across the board. And then she said the sentence that mattered most. Everyone is getting better, she said, except the officials. Read that again. That is a head coach, on the record, in a post-game press conference, telling the world that the people responsible for controlling the game have fallen so far behind the speed of the modern product that they've become a genuine liability to player safety. And the Sun game wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the loudest example of a pattern that had already been building for weeks. Look at the Fever's 2-point loss to the Liberty. On the final possession, the play that could have tied or won the game, Clark was fouled so blatantly on the drive that replay after replay only made it look worse. She never even got a shot off. The whistle stayed in the referee's pocket. The building reacted immediately. Social media exploded within minutes. Analysts called it out live on air, and the call still never came. Then, in what might be the single most tone-deaf response of the entire season, the league's disciplinary action after that game didn't target the missed call, and it didn't target the player who committed the foul. It targeted Stephanie White, fined for arguing about it afterward. Sit with that sequence for a second. A player commits what multiple analysts on air called a flagrant foul on the league's biggest draw in the final seconds of a 2-point game. The officials miss it completely. The coach, understandably furious, says something about it in the presser. And the league's institutional response is to punish the coach. That's not accountability. That's an organization quietly admitting a mistake happened while trying to choke off the conversation about it. The numbers back up exactly what White was pointing to. Over that stretch, Indiana was sitting at a -31 free throw discrepancy compared to their opponents. And White made a point of noting this wasn't a jump shooting, 3-point heavy roster settling for that gap. This was a team attacking the rim relentlessly, drawing contact on nearly every possession, and getting almost nothing whistled in their favor. This is where Lobo's comments stop being just praise for a great performance and start being genuinely alarming, because she didn't only share her own read on the situation, she revealed what she'd been hearing directly from people inside the league. She said she had personally spoken with multiple WNBA coaches specifically about the officiating, and every single one of them said the same thing without exception. It has to get better. Not most of them. All of them. And it wasn't just about overall quality. It was specifically about consistency. The sense that the exact same play can get called one way in the first quarter and completely ignored in the fourth, with no discernible pattern anyone can plan around. That's not a minor gripe. That's a professional league losing the ability to be predictable. And predictability is the entire foundation that competitive sport is built on. Then there's the detail that should genuinely worry anyone who cares about where this league is headed. One coach, speaking to Lobo anonymously, admitted something that lays the whole situation bare. That coach said their players are instructed to play as physically as humanly possible for all 40 minutes of a game, because based on experience, the officials will let them get away with it for roughly 38 of those 40 minutes. Think about what that actually means. Coaches are building game plans around the assumption that the referees won't consistently enforce the rules, turning excessive physicality into a low-risk, high-reward strategy. That's not a competitive league functioning at a high level. That's a league that has lost control of its own product. And more often than not, the target of that exact strategy is Caitlin Clark. She said as much herself, in a rare public moment of frustration, describing a game where she was attacking the basket, absorbing contact, said something to an official about it, and got laughed at by a referee mid-game. She turned her ankle on the very next possession from the same kind of uncalled contact she had just been complaining about. She referenced a flagrant that went uncalled in Dallas. She described the same pattern repeating across multiple games. And then she said the one line that should be written on a whiteboard in every WNBA office right now, that she hoped player safety would start becoming a priority over referee ego. That's Caitlin Clark, who is famously composed, who almost never publicly complains, telling everyone directly that this has gotten bad enough that she's genuinely worried about her own physical safety, not her stat line, her safety. And she's averaging under 2 free throw attempts a game while driving into contact on nearly every single possession, a number that's almost impossible to justify under normal circumstances. Right now the system is functioning like a highway with no speed enforcement anywhere. Everyone speeds because there's no consequence for it, and the officials, whether intentionally or not, are the ones setting that standard. By letting the physicality escalate without response, they're sending an unmistakable message to every roster in the league. Be as aggressive as you want with Clark, because nobody is going to stop you. Here's a detail that almost never gets talked about, but might be the clearest single proof of what Clark actually means to this league beyond her own stat sheet. Sophie Cunningham, before this season, was known mostly to hardcore fans and her own franchise's loyal base, not a mainstream name by any stretch. Then she spent one game guarding Clark hard, physical, competitive defense, but clean, right on the line without crossing it. Clark's fan base noticed instantly. Within a very short window, Cunningham gained over 1 million new followers across social platforms for playing tough, fair defense in a regular season game. That's not a coincidence, that's a blueprint. It's the audience telling the league exactly what it responds to. Players who engage Clark hard and fair get rewarded with attention that used to be unimaginable for a role player. The fans Clark brought into this league want the whole product. They want the rivalries, the personalities, the other stars. But none of that works if Clark isn't on the floor, healthy, and playing. Take her out of the equation through injury or unchecked physicality, and the entire engine stalls, exactly like it did during those 5 missed games. Candace Parker, who has seen this league from the inside as both a dominant player and now a sharp analyst, framed the whole situation in a way that's very hard to argue with. She brought up Wayne Gretzky and pointed out that opposing defensemen during his era had an unspoken understanding. They would hit him, compete against him as hard as the rules allowed, but they would not take cheap shots at him. And the reason wasn't sentiment, it was business. Those players understood, sometimes explicitly, that Gretzky's presence in the league was part of the reason their own paychecks existed. You don't destroy the thing that makes the whole enterprise valuable. You compete around it at the highest level possible, but you protect it. Parker was making the exact same argument about Clark, without softening it at all. This isn't about giving one player special treatment out of favoritism. It's about understanding that Clark is a major driver of the growth this league is currently experiencing, and allowing her to be targeted until she gets seriously hurt, whether through negligence or indifference, would be financially and institutionally catastrophic. And here's where it all comes together. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has publicly said Caitlin Clark is the most popular athlete in America, not the most popular female athlete, not the most popular basketball player, the most popular athlete, period, in her own words. And the numbers back that up across nearly every measurable category: viewership, merchandise sales, social engagement, ticket demand, media coverage. She's at or near the top of every single list. So after everything Lobo revealed, after the unanimous frustration from coaches, after the Sun game and the Liberty game and the missed calls and the dangerous unflagged plays, the question hanging over this entire league is brutally simple. If you know exactly what you have, why aren't you protecting it? Because what the WNBA is doing right now, whether through negligence or sheer institutional inertia, is leaving the door wide open for the one thing that could damage this league more than anything else possibly could. Not a weak season, not a lost sponsor, not competition from another league, an injury. One bad collision, one cheap shot that lands wrong, one more play the officials let slide the way they've been letting plays slide all season, and Clark is on the floor not getting back up. And then what happens? You don't have to guess. You already saw the preview. It's sitting right there in 5 games worth of data, cratered ratings, empty seats, silence where there used to be noise, sponsors asking hard questions, networks quietly reconsidering deals, a league that had the single greatest opportunity in its history and let it slip away because nobody wanted to have an uncomfortable conversation with a group of referees. Rebecca Lobo said what needed to be said, and she said it with the same professionalism that's defined her entire career, but clearly enough that nobody watching could pretend to miss the point. Every coach she talked to agrees the officiating has to improve. Every single one. The players are frustrated. The fans are furious. The evidence isn't ambiguous, it's overwhelming. And right now, the only people in this entire situation who don't seem to be responding to any of it are the ones actually in charge. The WNBA has something in front of it right now that almost never comes around. A player who makes people care about a league they used to completely ignore, who turns casual viewers into obsessive fans, who turns a highlight clip into a national conversation, who turns a random Tuesday regular season game into appointment television. In some leagues, that kind of moment never arrives at all. And when it finally does, there's exactly one job that matters. Don't waste it. Right now, this league is failing that test in real time. The real question isn't whether Rebecca Lobo said something true. Everyone already knows she did. The real question is whether her alarm, and the coaches echoing it behind closed doors, is finally loud enough to force someone in a position of actual authority to act. Because the next missed call, the next cheap shot that goes unflagged while Clark absorbs contact on every single drive to the basket, might not just cost the Fever one game. It might cost this entire league the future it's spent the last 2 years building. And once that's gone, no marketing campaign, no broadcast deal, and no carefully worded press release is bringing it back.